Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the one-day international seminar on Stridhan, succession, legal and property rights for girls and women, including unmarried, married, widowed, separated, in both Indian and international contexts. In collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Art, Sciences and Wellbeing, and national and international fraternity, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 76 years of independence, India's G20 presidency, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015-2030, as part of awareness and campaigns, World Health Organization 75th anniversary year, and also World Patient Safety Day. Before we start our sessions today, we request those who are willing to present to share, those who have registered for the presentations to share your presentation details in the chat box to the host or co-host so that you can be invited at appropriate time. So before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty. After the blessings of Almighty, we shall take up the commemoration of today, that is World Patient Safety Day, and then we will move on to today's presentations. So before we start, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's sessions and commemorations. Today is commemorated as World Safety Day. September 17th, every year, is celebrated and commemorated as World Patient Safety Day by World Health Organization. World Patient Safety Day calls for the global solidarity and concerted action by all countries and international partners to improve patient safety. The day brings together patients, families, caregivers, communities, health workers, healthcare leaders, and policy makers to show their commitment to patient safety. Their resolution, WHS 72.6 Global Action on Patient Safety, recognizes patient safety as a global health priority and endorses the establishment of World Patient Safety Day to be observed annually on 17th September. This year, the theme for the World Patient Safety Day 2023 is Engaging Patients for a Patient Safety. Patient and family engagement is pivotal strategy to advance safety in healthcare. As users of healthcare system with first-hand experience on the entire patient journey, the perspectives of patients, families, and caregivers are invaluable in improving patient safety. The impact of meaningful patient engagement is remarkable, with studies showing a potential reduction in the burden of harm by up to 15%, saving countless lives and billions of dollars each year. Therefore, patient and family engagement have been embedded as a fundamental principle in the World Health Assembly Resolution WHA 72.6 on global action on patient safety and in the Global Patient Safety Action Plan 2021 to 2030. World Patient Safety Day 2023 is dedicated to the theme Engaging Patients for Patient Safety and the slogan Elevate the Voice of Patients. The day aims to influence stakeholders, including patients' families, patients, policymakers, healthcare leaders, health workers, and patient organizations to work collaboratively towards co-designing healthcare policies and safety interventions that truly reflect the needs and preferences of patients, ultimately enhancing healthcare safety globally. Safe healthcare is a fundamental right of all patients everywhere, every time. And yet, patient harm due to unsafe care is one of the leading causes of death and disability worldwide, with millions of patients harmed every year. Patient and family engagement is a key strategy to developing safer health systems. Safe healthcare depends on full involvement of patients and families as the users of the healthcare system, and it requires a shift from care designed for patients to care designed with patients. Patients and families should be involved at every level of healthcare, from fully informed consent and shared decision making at the point of care to policy making and planning. No one should be harmed in healthcare. We must elevate the voice of patients. We must listen and learn. Everybody has a role to play. Policymakers, healthcare leaders, health and care workers, patients and their families, patient advocates, and civil society. Join us on this momentous occasion and light up the world in orange. Light up a monument, lights, camera, orange. It's a time to shine a spotlight on patient and family engagement for a safer care across the globe through lighting up of buildings, landmarks, and monuments in orange on 17th September. World Health Organization, in its turn, will illuminate the iconic jet Dio in Geneva, echoing our commitment to the cause. Let's raise our collective voices to elevate the voice of patients.
Something just didn't feel right.
We had so many questions.
They didn't listen to us, again and again.
No one told me what went wrong.
We all have the right to safe healthcare.
Each one of us.
Most of the harm caused to patients can be avoided.
Safety starts with us.
We have the right to ask questions
And to get answers.
To express our opinions and concerns.
To know if something went wrong in my care.
When I include patients and families as members of the health team,
care becomes safer.
When I listen to my patients.
When we are transparent.
When we learn from patients' experiences.
When we make decisions that include patients' voices.
When we partner with patients and families.
We save lives.
When I am heard, I can make a difference in my own care.
And the care of others.
Together,
we can achieve safer healthcare.
For everyone.
The Global Patient Safety Action Plan provides a framework for countries to develop respective national action plans on patient safety, as well as to align existing strategic instruments for improving patient safety in all clinical and health-related institutions. Recognizing that improving and ensuring patient safety is a growing challenge to health service delivery globally, the 72nd World Health Assembly in 2019 adopted Resolution WHA 72.6 on global action on patient safety. It urged member states and, where applicable, regional economic integration organizations, inter alia, to recognize patient safety as a health priority in health sector policies and programs. The Health Assembly also requested the Director General, inter alia, to formulate a global patient safety action plan in consultation with member states and all relevant stakeholders, including in the private sector, for submission of 74th consultation with member states and all relevant stakeholders, including in the private sector, for the submission to recognize patient safety as a health priority in health sector policies and programs. The Health Assembly also requested the Director General, inter alia, to formulate a global safety action plan in consultation with member states and all relevant stakeholders, including in private sector, for submission to the 74th World Health Assembly in 2021 through the Executive Board at its 148th session. In response, the Secretariat has initiated the development of a draft Global Patient Safety Action Plan. The action plan aims to provide member states and other stakeholders with an action-oriented framework to facilitate the implementation of strategic patient safety interventions at all levels of health systems globally over the next 10 years, that is from 2021 to 2030. The draft action plan will provide strategic direction for all stakeholders in improving patient safety in their practice domain through policy actions, as well as implementation of recommendations at the point of care. The draft action plan will provide list of suggestions, suggested actions for government, civil society, international organizations, intergovernmental organizations, the Secretariat, and most importantly, for healthcare facilities. Patients for patient safety, meaningful engagement of patients, families, and communities can improve healthcare quality and patient safety. Patients and their families are the only constants in the increasing complex healthcare systems. A patient may receive care from different facilities and multiple care providers from different disciplines. Every point in the care process contains some inherent risks. Adverse events or harm may result from problems in practice or with products, procedures, or systems which are not usually the fault of the healthcare provider. There are repository of critical information. There are repository of critical information which they can share when engaged and empowered. Engaging patients and families who have experienced harm can provide insights and learning concerning system failures. Patients and healthcare users' experiences and perspectives are needed in efforts to achieve integrated and people-centered health systems and services. It is therefore essential to ensure that their voice is heard in healthcare. World Health Organization Patients for Safety, PFPS, is a program of World Health Organization flagship initiative, A Decade of Patient Safety, 2021 to 2030, that engages and empowers patients and families and facilitates their partnership with health professionals and policymakers to make healthcare services safer worldwide. Patient is the only one person gone through his or her entire care process. His or her and family voice should be heard fully. PFPS was set up in 2005 with its first workshop held in November 2005 in London, United Kingdom. Its vision, expressed in the London Declaration, is to engage, empower, encourage, and facilitate patients and families to build and or participate in global networks advocating for and partnering with health professionals and policymakers to make healthcare services safer, more integrated, and people-centered for all. The goal of PFPS are to facilitate efforts to engage and empower patients, families, and communities to play an active role in their own care bring the voices of patients and people to the forefront of healthcare, create an enabling environment for partnerships between patients, families, communities, and health professionals. Since the PFPS program's inception, the program has broadened and its mission has widened to include engagement for people-centeredness and universal access and quality care. Engaging and empowering people is one of the 5 strategies of the World Health Organization's global strategy on people-centered and integrated health services. And a key element to the quality UHC engagement is not only crucial for patients in institutional care, but also for the members of the communities who wish to participate in healthcare initiatives and programs from promotion to palliation. The program aims to incorporate the patient, family, and community voice into all levels of healthcare through engagement and empowerment. The goal is to advocate and facilitate patients taking ownership of their care, bringing the voice of patient and people to the forefront of healthcare, patient, family, and community partnerships with health professionals, healthcare providers, policymakers, and researchers. Recognizing the huge burden of patient harm in healthcare, the 17th World Health Assembly in May 2019 adopted a resolution, WHA 72.6, on global action on patient safety, which endorsed the establishment of World Patient Safety Day to be observed every year on 17 September and recognized patient safety as a global health priority. The resolution urges member states to recognize safety as a key priority in health sector policies and programs and requests the Director General of World Health Organization to emphasize patient safety as a key strategic priority in World Health Organization's work, especially with the Universal Health Coverage Agenda. The resolution also requests World Health Organization's Director General to formulate a global patient safety action plan in consultation with member states, regional economic integration organizations, and all relevant stakeholders, including the private sector. The plan will be based on guiding principles of equity, sustainability, and accountability. The proposed action plan will seek inspiration and coherence with existing global action plans developed by World Health Organization and other global health and development agencies. Responding to the unprecedented global patient safety movement, the need for very urgent and concerted action in this area and aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals. World Health Organization Director General launches the World Health Organization flagship initiative, A Decade of Patient Safety 2020 to 2030 in February 2020. Patient safety in healthcare is an urgent and serious global public health concern. Patient harm exerts a very high burden on all healthcare systems across the world. Every year, an inadmissible number of patients suffer injuries or die because of unsafe and poor quality healthcare. Most of these injuries are avoidable. The burden of unsafe care broadly highlights the magnitude and scale of problem. Patient harm due to adverse events is likely to be among the 10 leading causes of death and disabilities worldwide. Most of these deaths and injuries are avoidable. It is commonly reported that around 1 in 10 hospitalized patients experience harm, with at least 50% being preventable. Around 2/3 of all adverse events resulting from unsafe care and the years lost to disability and death occur in LMICs. It is estimated that the cost of harm associated with the loss of life or permanent disability, which results in lost capacity and productivity of the affected patients and families, amounts to trillions of US dollars every year. Furthermore, the psychological cost to the patient and their family associated with the loss of disabling of loved one is certainly significant, though more difficult to measure. Common adverse events that may result in avoidable patient harm are medication errors, unsafe surgical procedures, healthcare-associated infections, diagnostic errors, patient falls, pressure ulcers, patient misidentification, unsafe blood transfusion, and venous thromboembolism. Patient harm potentially reduces global economic growth by 0.7% a year. On a global scale, the indirect cost of harm amounts to trillions of US dollars each year. Investment in reducing patient harm can lead to significant financial savings and, more importantly, better patient outcomes. An example of a good return of investment is patient engagement, which, if done well, can reduce the burden of harm by 15%. So let's look at each of the sources of patient harm. First, do no harm is the most fundamental principle of any healthcare service. No one should be harmed in healthcare. However, there is compelling evidence of a huge burden of avoidable patient harm globally across the developed and developing healthcare systems. This has major human, moral, ethical, and financial implications. Patient safety is defined as the absence of preventable harm to a patient and reduction of risk of unnecessary harm associated with healthcare to an acceptable minimum within the broader health system context. It is a framework of organized activities that creates cultures, process, procedures, behaviors, technologies, and environments in healthcare that consistently and sustainably lower risks, reduce the occurrence of avoidable harm, make error less likely, and reduce impact of harm when it does occur. Let's look at the common sources of patient harm. Medication errors. Related harm effects. 1 out of every 30 patients in healthcare with more than a quarter of this harm regarded as severe or life-threatening. Half of the avoidable harm in healthcare is related to the medications. Surgical errors. Over 300 million surgical procedures are performed each year worldwide. Despite awareness of the adverse effects, surgical errors continue to occur at a high rate. 10% of the preventable patient harm in healthcare was reported in surgical settings, with most of the resultant adverse effects events occurring pre and post-surgery. Healthcare-associated infections, with a global rate of 0.14% increasing by 0.6 and 0.06% each year, healthcare-associated infections result in extended duration of hospital stays, long-standing disability, increased antimicrobial resistance, additional financial burden on patients, families, and health systems, and avoidable deaths. Sepsis. Sepsis is a serious condition that happens when the body's immune system has an extreme response to an infection. The body's reaction causes damage to its own tissues and organs. Of all sepsis cases managed in hospitals, 23.6% were found to be healthcare associated, and approximately 24.4% of the affected patients lost their lives as a result. Diagnostic errors. These occur in 5 to 20% of the physician-patient encounters. According to doctor reviews, harmful diagnostic errors were found in a minimum of 0.7% of adult admissions. Most people will suffer a diagnostic error in their lifetime. Patient falls. Patient falls are the most frequent adverse events in hospitals. Their rate of occurrence ranges from 3 to 5% per 1,000 bed days, and more than 1/3 of these incidents result in injury, thereby reducing clinical outcomes and increasing financial burden on systems. Venous thromboembolism, more simply known as blood clots. Venous thromboembolism is a highly burdensome and preventable cause of patient harm, which contributes to 1/3 of the complications attributed to hospitalization. Pressure ulcers. Pressure ulcers are injuries to the skin or soft tissue. They develop from the pressure to particular parts of the body over an extended period. If not promptly managed, they can have fatal complications. Pressure ulcers affect more than 1 in 10 adult patients admitted to hospitals, and despite being highly preventable, they have a significant impact on the mental and physical health of individuals and their quality of life. Unsafe transfusion practices. Unnecessary transfusion and unsafe transfusion practices expose patients to the risk of serious adverse transfusion reactions and transfusion transmissible infections. Data on adverse transfusion reactions from a group of 62 countries shows an average incidence of 12.2 serious reactions per 1 lakh distributed blood components. Patient misidentification. Failure to correctly identify patients can be a root cause of many problems and has serious effects on healthcare provision. It can lead to catastrophic adverse effects such as wrong site surgery. A report of the Joint Commission published in 2018 identified 409 sentinel events of patient identification out of 3,326 incidents, which is about 12.3% between 2014 and 2017. Unsafe injection practices. Each year, 16 billion injections are administered worldwide, and unsafe injection practices place patients and health and care workers at risk of infectious and non-infectious adverse events. Using mathematical modeling, a study estimated that in a period of 10 years, from 2000 to 2010, 1.67 million hepatitis B virus infections between 1,57,592 and 3,15,120 hepatitis C virus infections, and between 16,939 and 33,877 HIV infections were associated with unsafe injections. So patients' harm in healthcare due to safety breaks is pervasive, problematic, and can occur in all settings at all levels of healthcare provision. There are multiple and interrelated factors that can lead to patient harm, and more than one factor is usually involved in any single patient safety incident. System and organizational factors, the complexity of medical interventions, inadequate process and procedure, disruptions in workflow and care coordination, resource constraints, inadequate staffing, and competency development. Technological factors include issues related to health information systems, such as problems with electronic health records or medication administration systems, and misuse of technology. Human factors and other behaviors include communication breakdown among healthcare workers, within the healthcare teams, and with patients and their families, ineffective teamwork, fatigue, burnout, and cognitive bias. Patient-related factors include limited health literacy, lack of engagement, and non-adherence to the treatment, and so on. External factors include absence of policies, inconsistent regulations, economic and financial pressures, and challenges related to natural environment. So most of the mistakes that lead to the harm do not occur as a result of the practices of one or a group of health and care workers, but are rather due to system or process failures that lead these health and care workers to make mistakes. Understanding the underlying causes of errors in medical care thus requires shifting from the traditional blaming approach to a more system-based thinking. In this, errors are attributed to poorly designed system structures and processes, and the human nature of all these working in healthcare facilities under a considerable amount of stress is complex and quickly changing environments is recognized. This is done without overlooking negligence or misbehavior from those providing care that leads to sustainable medical management. A safe health system is one that adopts all necessary measures to avoid and reduce harm through organized activities, including ensuring leadership commitment to safety and creation of a culture whereby safety is prioritized, ensuring a safe working environment and safety of procedures and clinical process, building competencies of health and care workers, improving teamwork and communication, engaging patients and families in policy development, research and shared decision-making, and establishing systems for patient safety, incident reporting, for learning and continuous improvement. Investing patient safety positively impacts health outcomes, reduces costs related to patient harm, improves system efficiency, and helps in reassuring communities and restoring their trust in healthcare systems. So with this, we shall conclude today's commemoration of World Patient Safety Day. So before we take up the next session, we request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form. Which has been raised in the form of polls for session 1. Kindly stay back for the session, next session. The feedback form has been raised in the form of polls in Zoom platform. You can access from the menu, polls quizzes. In that, you can see active polls. If you can click on that, you can access the form. Automatically, the form is launched. If you accidentally close it, you can access it from polls quizzes menu. So our next presenter would be Virendra Kumar ji. So we request Virendra Kumar ji, once if after filling up the feedback form, you can raise your hand so that we can invite you for your presentation. Actually, one of the reasons for taking up today the women's property rights is also due to inaccessibility of healthcare due to lack of financial resources and economic resources and support for women. That's why we have chosen this day, which is also we have seen as per few studies conducted that many women often do not proactively reach out for the health and medical facilities. This is because of the burden on the family, and women often do not prioritize their health and well-being over other expenses of the family. So many times it happens that in this context, generally, women and girls are not given equal opportunity on the property of their families, which also is one of the factors that prevents to the healthcare and medical care facilities and also impacts on health and well-being. So today, we'll also look at various aspects on the property rights of girls and women in all contexts. And we will look into detail about various provisions provided by the Constitution, by the law, to ensure that every girl and woman has equal access to the property of their family, irrespective of the gender. Whether the successors are either girls or boys. It doesn't matter. Even if the girl is married or unmarried, that doesn't matter. But both the boys and girls, both the women and men have equal rights over the property. So we will take up the presentation by one of our legal experts, Sri Virendra Kumar Thakurji. He is an advocate and RTA resource person, and he is also presently working as assistant professor in computer science engineering in Govind Ballabh Pant Institute of Engineering and Technology. And he has been very grateful and proactively available on this platform through his participations and presentations have enormously contributed to the platform, to the entire series. So we welcome you, sir, once again for this platform and to disseminate information on the topic of women's property and succession rights. Over to you, sir. You can now unmute yourself, start your video and presentation.
Yes. Thank you for the kind words and introduction, sir. I have unmuted myself. I hope I'm audible. I'm
Yes,
also
sir.
making my camera on. I'm connected through my laptop and yes. We have a dual camera, so I will make this integrated camera is on, and but I'm not. Let me check my video settings.
Can see you, sir. The thing is,
Okay,
you need
okay.
to adjust
Yes.
the camera.
So maybe yes. Okay, so maybe my
so that you can
this
see.
itself is yes. So I'll also share my screen now. I'm clicking on share screen.
It's not yet visible.
It's responding slow.
Okay. There is some network issue. Let's wait for the speaker to join back. In the meanwhile, we request the other presenters who are willing to present to share your details in chat box. And also request to complete the formalities. It is mandatory. Before the presentation, if you have not yet completed, you can complete immediately after the presentation before the end of the day. Okay. In the meanwhile, while the speaker joins, when we look at the history across the world or across the planet, we see that mostly only the male members had rights over the family properties. However, women's property rights have significantly evolved in the past couple of years. There are few rights and acts which were available since pre-independence, and also the post-independence acts, which also empowered women and girls with property rights. The prominent among them are the Hindu Succession Act 1956 and the Hindu Women's Right to Protection Act 1937. The 1937 Act predominantly dealt with the property rights of Hindu widows. It allowed a Hindu widow to receive an equal share in her husband's property as her sons. But though there were a lot of provisions, but there were certain practical issues and there were a lot of challenges in implementing, not only with because India has a diversified religions and cultures, and there was no universal law or universal code of law. So every religion has different laws and acts which were traditionally followed from time to time. So the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005, upon the recommendations of the 174th Law Commission report, made certain significant changes to the 1956 Act, which paved a breakthrough towards getting rid of gender equality and addressing property rights issues for women in India. The significant changes included co-partnership interest, a co-partnership property refers to any interstate ancestral property acquired by the members of a Hindu undivided family before the 2005 amendment, only 3 male lineal descendants, that is son, grandson, and great-grandson, constituted the body of coparceners and were entitled to acquire any coparcenary property. This meant that the women had no interest in the coparcenary property since they could not be coparceners. For instance, a son of coparcener received a share in the coparcener property, but his sister didn't. So there were many such cases, instances. However, with this amendment, 2005 amendment, it eradicated the age-old discriminatory practice of keeping women out of coparcenary system. Section 6 of 1 of the 1956 Act provides that in any Hindu undivided family governed by the Mitakshara law, the daughter of the coparcener shall by birth become a coparcener in her own right, just as the son of coparcener. So now a daughter of a coparcener is also a coparcener in the Hindu undivided family. So Section 6 of the 1956 Act was equal rights and liabilities on both the sons and daughters of a coparcener. Section 6(1) provides that the daughter of a coparcener has the same rights in coparcenary property as she would have if she had been a son, and has the same liabilities also in respect of the coparcenary property as that of a son. Similarly, under Section 14 of the 1956 Act, every Hindu woman has full ownership right over any movable or immovable property she possesses through acquisition. She may have acquired it before or after her marriage in any of the following ways, like inheritance, partition, in lieu of maintenance or its errors, gift from any relative or non-relative, own skill or exertion, purchase or prescription, stridhana, etc. So Section 14 of the 1956 Act gives any Hindu woman the right to use her property without consent or permission from her husband or father or etc., whoever it may be. She can freely transfer her property and use the money gained from such transfer in any way she wants. Yeah, Virendra Kumarji, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm connected. I'm back into the meeting. Thank you, sir. Sorry for the technical glitch. I had to restart my laptop.
It's okay.
So it took some time. Okay. Okay, so I'll focus my camera. My video is clear to me now. Yes, I'm also sharing my screen. I hope my screen is visible, sir.
Yes, sir. Now it's fine.
Okay,
Please continue.
so let us start with the topic, that is family property law for women in India. In India, we have common criminal code. There is uniform criminal code, that is IPC, CRPC, Evidence Act. These acts are common for all communities, regardless of their religion. But as far as the civil code is concerned, so in civil code, many of the laws are common. For example, Indian Contract Act, or maybe say Motor Vehicles Act. Many laws are common and they apply to all communities, regardless of their religion. But in civil law, mainly the family law, and we have special family courts in India. That is, Family Courts Act 1984 is there. And as far as the family cases are concerned, so they are civil cases mainly, and they are decided in family courts. Family is defined as, you say, group of individuals that are related by birth, marriage, or adoption. That is legally called as the family. Now, as far as property laws for girls and women, that is married, unmarried, or divorcee, separated, these different laws are concerned. So there is no uniformity. So we shall see it community-wise and see what are the different laws, civil as well as criminal, and the main provisions. I will not go into section by section details, but this is just a comprehensive summary of these different laws. So we shall see that there is no uniform civil code and these laws are different. So we shall see what are the main communities and what are the laws for these. So,
sir, your voice is low.
Okay, I'll just check. My jack is connected properly.
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'll adjust my distance also. Distance from mic.
Yes.
Yes, because that also makes a difference. Sometimes there could be network problem also. So if you are not able to hear properly, you can ask me, so that maybe I will connect from my audio from my mobile phone. Okay. So now we see the legal provisions for the rights of girls and women on family property in India are governed by various laws and regulations, which can vary depending on the community, religion, and personal laws to which an individual belongs. So India is a diverse country with different religious and cultural communities, and as a result, there are specific laws that apply to each community. So first, we shall have a comprehensive overview of legal provisions for girls and women's rights, that is unmarried and married, on family property based on some of the major communities in India. So we shall see this analysis community-wise. First, we come to Hindu community. There are many laws, but prominently we shall see first there is Hindu Succession Act 1956, what is called as Hindu Code Bill. So it comprises of 4 laws that were passed from 1954 to 1956. Among them, there is succession. That is what happens to a person's property after the person dies. That is called as the succession. There are 2 ways of legally dying. First is the dying intestate, that is without making will, wasiyatnama. And second is after making will. These are 2 legal ways of dying. Medically, there are other ways of dying, that is brain death, or say maybe death of heart, death of lungs. There are also other ways of dying, that is natural death, accidental death, suicide, homicide. And there are actually hundreds of types of death. Those are studied in say thanatology, science of death. Here we are concerned with legal ways. From property point of view, there are 2 ways the property is distributed, that is dying intestate and dying after making testament. This law applies to Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs. So here in Hindu Succession Act, we consider 4 major communities: Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs. So Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs are also considered among Hindus, and that is the laws are same as far as the Hindu Succession Act or other property laws are concerned, or even all family laws. But for marriage, there could be different laws. So we shall see these communities, Jains and Sikhs, separately also. They grant equal rights to daughters and sons in ancestral property. Daughters have the same rights as sons in the property of their fathers, whether self-acquired or ancestral. So in Hindu and Buddhist, Jain and Sikh, there are equal rights for son and daughter. Married daughters also have rights in their parental property. Then we see Hindu marriage at 1955. This law gives a wife certain rights over her husband's property. She has the right to reside in her husband's house and receive maintenance. So when they are living together, there is right to live. This we call as the conjugal rights. And after separation also, there is right to receive maintenance. So these are recognized in various laws. Even in CRPC 125 to 128, there is right to receive maintenance. In Hindu Marriage Act also there is maintenance. Protection of women from domestic violence Act 2005. So this act protects the rights of married and unmarried women by providing them protection from domestic violence and securing their right to reside in a shared household. So there is right to reside in the DVA, that is Domestic Violence Act. Next we come to Muslim community. First there is Muslim personal law. So Muslim law in India is based on Sharia and very depending on sects within the Muslim community. There are many different sects. Generally, Muslim women have the right to a share in the property of their deceased family members as per Sharia principles. What are these principles? We shall see. The Muslim Women Protection of Rights in Divorce Act 1986. So this act provides for maintenance and property rights of Muslim women after divorce. So this was passed after the Shah Bano case. So we shall see important provisions of this act also. Next we come to Christian community. There are two acts.
Sir, your voice is again
breaking. Okay.
over.
Okay, no problem. Maybe I would connect to my mobile phone. That would be, I think, more convenient because audio is very clear through my mobile. Yes. Now I am connected to my mobile. Echo is there, so I have to disconnect. Okay, I have left computer audio. So presentation is from my mobile, from my laptop, and audio is through my mobile. Is it better quality now, sir? There is no need of headphones now.
Louder.
There is no need of headphones now. Okay. Next, we come to Indian Succession Act 1925. So this act applies to Christians and governs the distribution of the deceased property among legal heirs. Actually, that's not say exactly legally correct because Indian Succession Act applies to all communities regardless, and it also applies to intercaste marriages. So it's not applicable only to Christians, but also to intercaste marriages. So that is Indian Succession Act. Indian means made by British Parliament. So that law is there. So we shall see about it and how it applies to Christians. Next, we come to Indian Divorce Act 1869. This is especially for Anglo-Indian community because Britishers were in India for many years and there were marriages of Indian as well as British people, as shown in say Lagan movie. And sometimes these people got married even after independence. They were not forced to leave India, but many of them settled and some of them even in judiciary. And even there was parliamentary reservation for 2 seats in Lok Sabha and 1 even in Uttarakhand Vidhan Sabha. Now those Anglo-Indian seats have been say abolished in some cases. But this Indian Divorce Act applies to say this Christian community marriages. So this act governs the property rights of Christian women in cases of divorce. We shall see that also. Then we come to other communities that includes Parsi, Sikh, Jain and other communities. So Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act 1936 is there. So Parsi women have rights to property, maintenance and inheritance as per the provisions of this act. Then we have Sikh community. So for that there is Hindu Succession Act 1956. It applies to Sikhs also as part of Hindu Succession Act, have equal property rights for daughters and sons. Then we see Jain community. Even there the Hindu Succession Act 1956 applies. So Jains are governed by the Hindu Succession Act, which grants equal property rights to daughters and sons. And then we have other communities. So there are some tribal communities. So for them, the laws are somewhat different. And even in implementation of Uniform Civil Code, that is UCC, this is perceived as one of the problems, whether that would apply to tribal communities or not. And it has become a matter of controversy, particularly in the northeastern states. So other communities include the legal provisions for various other communities may differ based on their personal laws and customs. Some tribal communities have their own customary laws, which can also influence property rights. As far as we talk about uniform civil code, actually it means only uniform family code, not civil, because already there are say contracts and say motor vehicles act and many other laws that are civil. So when we talk of UCC, we talk mainly of uniform family law or family code. And family code mainly includes marriage, divorce, adoption, succession. These are the only 4 matters that are covered. It does not include religious practices. Now we see other influences on property rights. So while applying these to individual cases, we should see that actual implementation and interpretation of these laws can vary, and cultural practices and local customs may also influence property rights. So those who are looking for the solutions to their problems, they are advised that while applying this law, you have to see about the applicability, and depending on the individual cases, because there could be intercaste, there could be interreligious, there is also Foreign Marriage Act, there are different say laws that may apply, and therefore the applicability has to be found out first. First, we come to Hindu Succession Act 1956. So it is a crucial piece of legislation that governs the succession and inheritance rights of Hindus, including married and unmarried girls and women, on family property from their parents and in-laws. That is before marriage and after marriage. So that governs the both of these. So some of the key provisions are there for the rights of girls and women on family property. We see these laws. First, there is intestate. That is when there is no will. I have already told about 2 ways of dying. So first is intestate. It is not interstate. It is intestate. Testament is wasiyatnama, will. So 2 important sections are there. Section 8 is that every child, whether a son or a daughter, has an equal right to the ancestral property. That is a property acquired from their forefathers, family property. This means that daughters have the same rights as sons in the ancestral property of their parents. This is as far as Hindu Marriage Act is concerned. Next, we see Section 10. In Section 10, a Hindu male dies intestate, that is without a will. His property is distributed among his class 1 heirs. A list is given in that schedule, which includes his widow, children, and the children of predeceased sons and daughters. Daughters inherit equally with sons. And the schedule also gives percentage, because it is a long list of say relatives, and the property is distributed based on this list. So who is given priority and who is given how much sharing. So that is given in the schedule. So this is Section 10. Next we come to, I'll go to next slide. Right to self-acquired property. Now see, there are 2 ways of property. First is ancestral property, second is self-acquired. So as far as the self-acquired property is concerned, so the rights may vary in such cases. So in case of self-acquired property, we shall see that Section 14 applies. Hindu woman, whether married or unmarried, has the same rights as a Hindu man in her self-acquired property. This means that a woman can own, manage, and dispose of her property independently. As far as the say immovable property is concerned, even some states have the law that so that the property should be bought in the name of woman, so that there is a less duty that is to be paid to the government if the property is in the name of the woman. So these types of concessions are given by some state governments so that they have to pay less tax to the government if the property is owned by or say it is in the name of the woman, so that people are encouraged to have property in name of woman. So that is the self-acquired property. Next we come to co-parcenary rights. So there are co-parcenary rights. We shall see what it is. Section 6 applies there. Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005 amended the act to give daughters the same rights as sons in co-parcenary property. Co-parcenary property is ancestral property, that is property inherited from forefathers, that is jointly inherited by the male descendants of a common ancestor. So daughters are now co-partners and have equal rights with sons in such property, as far as Hindu and these communities are concerned. Section 23 says that a female co-partner has the same rights and liabilities as a male co-partner. So even the rights and liabilities, that includes the liability of looking towards children also. So female co-partner has the same liability as per Section 23 as a male co-partner. Next we see Mitakshara joint family. There are slight differences as well as the North Indian and South Indian communities are concerned. even in say Hindu community. So both these rights are both these say different say customs of or traditions of these communities are recognized as far as the Hindu law is concerned. So when we talk about this Hindu law, so in that case, Mitakshara joint families, which are more prevalent in some regions of India, daughters can have the right to become co-partners and have an equal share in ancestral property, just like sons. It is not strictly north-south divide, but where the Mitakshara joint families say considered or followed, so there they have the equal rights as far as say male and female, both have equal rights. Next, we come to right to seek partition. That is, whenever there is partition and many legal disputes are related to partition, so section 20 regulates that. A daughter, whether married or unmarried, has the right to seek a partition of her share in the joint family property, and these provisions enables women to claim their rightful share in the family property, and they can demand a division of the property if they so desire. So there is a right to seek partition among Hindus. Then there are married daughters' rights. So even after marriage, a daughter retains her rights in her parental property, and her marital status does not affect the right to inherit and own her share. So even married daughters have the rights in their property of their parental property. Next, there is devolution of a property on a daughter's death. So what happens when a daughter dies, married or unmarried? Now, if a daughter dies without a will, that is say intestate, so her property devolves upon her legal heirs, including say her children, husband, and other relatives. So that is as per section 15, Hindu Marriage Act. Then amendments to Hindu Succession Act. Now we see Hindu Succession Act was amended in 2005 to rectify gender-based disparities. Earlier they were not say equal rights, but after 2005 amendment, there are these equal rights. So it rectifies gender-based disparities in property rights among Hindus. These amendments significantly strengthen the rights of daughters and women in family property. However, variations and complexity may exist in application of the law due to regional customs, personal practices, and individual circumstances. So there could be slight variation among different communities or different states, or even among different local laws that is there. So before applying to individual cases, say maybe expert legal advice may be necessary. Next, we see Hindu Marriage Act 1955. So this was earlier we have seen Hindu Succession Act. Now we come to Hindu Marriage Act. Primarily deals with the legal practices of Hindu marriages, including the rights and obligations of spouses. While the act itself doesn't directly address rights of girls and women on family property, see, it is not mainly related to property, but it's related to marriage. But still there are some provisions. So it has implications for property rights in certain situations. So let us see what are the provisions of Hindu Marriage Act 1955 related to property rights for girls and women, that is both married and unmarried. First is the maintenance rights after marriage. So under this section, section 18, see, these are different from that CRPC 125. Under this section, Hindu wife has the right to claim maintenance from her husband. This includes the right to residence, food, clothing, and other necessities. This provision ensures that a married woman has legal rights to financial support from her husband. So this is the section 18 say proceedings under in family court. Next, we come to property rights of Hindu married women. So this is ensured in section 14. So this section deals with the property rights of Hindu married women. It provides that any property that is both movable and immovable acquired by woman before marriage or by inheritance or a will shall be her absolute property. And she has full control and ownership over it. That means she can even say devolve it to her say successors. This property does not become part of her husband's estate and he has no claim to it. That means husband's estate is different and a wife's estate is different. So this is as per section 14. Next we come to Sri Dhana. Sri Dhana is a popular term that is it is popular in South India. Sri Dhana, that is woman's property in English. So section 15 regulates. It defines Sri Dhana, which refers to a woman's property. Sri Dhana includes gifts both before and after marriage. Even in say dowry prohibition at 1961, there are rules of 1995, and what is voluntary. So there is a list that is to be maintained by say Var-Vadhu, that is say bride and bridegroom, whatever gifts they receive from their relatives and friends, and that doesn't come within the definition of dowry because it is voluntary and there is no coercion. But if there is coercion, then that is prohibited and it could be a criminal offense. So Sridhana includes gifts both before and after marriage received by the wife. These gifts are her exclusive property and the husband has no rights over them. So Sridhana, woman's property, here the woman has exclusive right. Next we come to rights of unmarried daughters, section 20. So if a daughter is not given a share in her father's property during his lifetime, she has the right to claim it as her share after his father's death. So either she receives through, say, during lifetime, maybe at the time of marriage, because that is how the this dowry custom evolved. And then it degraded into, say, social, say, bad practice, and then it was banned. But say, if she has not received during the lifetime, then she can receive it even after her father's death. That is section 20. Next, we see right to residence. So as per section 17, Hindu wife has the right to reside in her husband's household. And she cannot be evicted from there except through legal proceedings. That is, there has to be legal proceedings, and they are generally in, say, section 9 of Hindu Marriage Act. That is a right to restitution of conjugal rights. So after marriage, husband has the right to live with wife, and wife has the right to live with husband. And if, say, the wife is forced to go to her parental house after marriage, then she can initiate proceeding against husband in under section 9. Similarly, if the wife has left the house, then the husband can initiate say, proceedings against wife under section 9. So that is the right to restitution of conjugal rights. If that doesn't succeed, then there are, say, proceedings under section 12. 12 is judicial separation, and under that they live, say, for 1 year, kacha divorce, what they call it. And when it becomes pakka, that is after 1 year, if there is no compromise, then there could be permanent divorce, after which they become, say, to marry another partner of their choice. So these are section 9, 12, and 13 proceedings. Now, rights upon divorce. So section 23, subsection 2. In case of divorce, Hindu wife can seek maintenance and support from her husband, and the court can order the husband to provide a lump sum settlement or periodic payments based on, say, husband's property, or maybe husband's income, or both. The Act provides for the division of properties upon divorce, so including the wife's right to claim a share in her husband's property. So this is under section 27. Even in CRPC, earlier there was limit of 500 per month. Then it was raised to 5,000 per month in UP during Mayawati government. Now under CRPC, it is 50% of husband property. So we can conclude that for Hindu Marriage Act 1955 primarily deals with marriage-related matters, and its provisions regarding property rights are related to the rights and entitlements of married women within the context of marriage and divorce. And Act doesn't specifically address the rights of unmarried girls or women on their parental property or in-laws property. But property rights in such cases are often governed by Hindu Succession Act 1956. So Hindu Marriage Act and Hindu Succession Act, they have different provisions and other relevant laws. They are actually, we can say, complementary. Additionally, the legal provisions may vary in their application depending on individual circumstances, religious, regional customs, and specific cases. Next, we come to Domestic Violence Act. So Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005 is a crucial piece of legislation in India. Actually, it's a minor criminal law that aims to protect the rights of women, both married and unmarried, against domestic violence, Gharelu Hinsa, Nivaran Adhiniyam. So while the primary focus of the Act is on addressing domestic violence, it indirectly touches upon issues related to women's rights in family property, especially in the context of providing relief and protection to victims of domestic violence. And here are some key provisions that apply to, say, girls and women's rights in family property, because domestic violence could be on unmarried girls as well as married women. First, we see definition of aggrieved person. So Act defines aggrieved person as any woman who is or has been in a domestic relationship with their respondent, husband or relative, and who alleges to have been subjected to any act of domestic violence by the respondent. This definition includes both married as well as unmarried women. Next, we see right to residence. So 17(1). An aggrieved woman has the right to reside in shared household regardless of whether she has any legal interest in the property. This provision ensures that a woman cannot be evicted from the matrimonial home or shared household by the husband or his relatives, even if she does not own the property. So ownership of property is different, but right to residence is different. The Act under section 19, Act provides for issuance of protection orders by the court, which can include an order restraining the respondent from dispossessing or in any other manner disturbing the possession of an aggrieved woman from the shared household. So this is right to residence under section 17(1) and 19. Next, we come to right to compensation and maintenance, section 20. So Act allows the magistrate to order, because it is a minor criminal law, so proceedings come before criminal court, not before the family court. So the Act allows the magistrate to order the respondent to pay monetary relief to the aggrieved person for the losses suffered as a result of domestic violence. This relief may include loss of household expenses, medical expenses, and any other relevant expenses. Next, there is right to protection orders. So under Section 18, the court can issue protection orders to prevent the commission of acts of domestic violence and to prohibit the respondent from entering the place of employment of the aggrieved person or her relatives. That is, husband may be prevented from entering office of her wife, or other relatives may be prohibited from entering the office of the wife. So these are protection orders. The right to custody of children, Section 21. So Act empowers the court to grant temporary custody of children to the aggrieved woman, ensuring her right to custody and protection of her children. Because this is often a bone of contention in family disputes, who will get the custody of children and who has the primary right. So depending on age of the child and in the benefit of children, the family courts decide these matters. The right to residence orders in favor of relatives. So Section 19(1)(b). In certain cases, the Act allows the court to pass a residence order in favor of the aggrieved woman's female relatives. This ensures that other female family members, such as unmarried daughters or sisters, can also seek protection and residence in cases of domestic violence. So that includes not only the wife, but also unmarried daughters as well as sisters. So we can conclude that as far as DV Act is concerned, that is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, primarily a legislation aimed at preventing and addressing domestic violence and providing relief and protection to victims. And while it does indirectly touch upon women's rights in shared household, it doesn't deal specifically with property rights, ownership, or inheritance, because for that there are other laws. So mainly it deals with right to residence. The Act primarily focuses on ensuring safe and secure living environment for women facing domestic violence, and for property-related matters, including inheritance and ownership rights, women should refer to other relevant laws, as we have already seen, Hindu Succession Act 1956, or other personal laws applicable to their specific community, in case of interreligious, intercaste, or foreign marriages. Now we come to Muslim personal law. So Muslim personal law in India is primarily governed by Islamic principles and customs, and it varies based on different sects and schools of thought within the Muslim community, even as far as law colleges are concerned. So students have got a choice in family law. I have studied from Lucknow University. So there the 50-50 choice is provided as far as the question paper setting is concerned. So student can choose either Hindu law or Muslim law, and they can pass the full subject. Although it is not necessary that Hindu clients will choose Hindu advocate or Muslim, say the clients will choose Muslim advocate. That type of law is not there, but still advocates are given free choice, law students are given free choice, that they could study either Hindu or personal law, and even by studying a single law, they can pass the whole paper. That is as far as the education, legal education is concerned. It is important to note that there is no single codified Muslim personal law in India. Instead, it is based on various sources of Islamic jurisprudence. So there is no codified law. Only few, 2-3 acts are there. Here are some key provisions and principles both pertain to rights of girls and women, both married and unmarried, on family property under Muslim personal law. First is the rights of daughters and married women. So in Islamic inheritance law, the general principle is that daughters and sons have a share in the property of their parents, and the shares are determined according to specific rules. What are the basic principles? First is daughters' inheritance. So under Islamic law, daughters are entitled to inherit from their parents, and the Quran stipulates that daughters received half the share of sons. See, this is in contradiction to Hindu law, where daughters have equal rights. In Muslim communities, daughters have half the share of their say as compared to sons. However, it is important to note that these shares can vary depending on the circumstances and school of thought within Islam, because again there are many schools of thought within Islam. There are so many sects, and even Shia Sunnis are there. Then married daughters. So unlike some other personal laws, the marriage of daughter does not extinguish her right to inherit from her parents' property. So even after marriage, there are rights. A married daughter still has the right to inherit her share from her parents' estate. Next, we come to maintenance right. So it is called meher or dower. So don't confuse that with dowry. Dowry is different, and dower in Muslim law is different from a dowry of, say, Hindu community, although the words sound similar. So Muslim women have the right to receive meher, that is dower, as part of their marriage contract. Because marriage is not considered religious ceremony, but it is rather considered contract in Muslim community. That is main difference. This amount is a financial obligation on the husband and is typically paid at the time of marriage or as agreed upon. The wife has the right to claim her meher, and it is her personal property. So this meher or dower is decided at the time of marriage. The right to Sri Dhana. So in some Muslim communities, women are entitled to Sri Dhana, which includes gifts, jewelry, or other property received by women before or during marriage. Sri Dhana is her exclusive property and her husband has no rights over it. So there is Sri Dhana in Muslim communities also. Then there is right to maintenance. The word is called nafaka. Muslim husbands are obligated to provide maintenance nafaka to their wives, which includes providing for their shelter, food, clothing, and other necessities. This is a financial right for married women. So this is right to maintenance. Then there is right to muta, temporary marriage. So in certain Shia Muslim communities, women may enter into muta or temporary marriage contracts. During such marriages, women may negotiate specific financial terms, including the payment of a certain amount as compensation, because marriage is considered just a contract in Muslim community. So these terms can include financial rights for women. So this is temporary marriage rights. Then there is waqf, endowment, for the benefit of women. So under Islamic law, individuals can create waqf, that is endowment, to provide for the welfare of their family members, including women. So waqf properties are dedicated for a specific purpose, such as supporting the maintenance and financial needs of women. So that is the waqf or endowment for benefit of women. Then there are legal rights in case of divorce or death. So in case of divorce or death of a husband, Muslim women have the right to their rightful shares of property and assets according to Islamic inheritance laws. So we can conclude that Muslim personal law can vary significantly among different sects and schools of thought within the Muslim community, and interpretations may differ. Furthermore, some reforms have been proposed and implemented in certain states in India, such as Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Marriage Act 2019. See, the name is different. The 1986 Act was Protection of Rights on Divorce, while the 2019 Act, by which 3 talaq is banned, the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Marriage Act 2019, that is the name, which criminalizes the practice of instant triple talaq, that is talaq-e-bid'ah. There is diversity within Muslim personal law and the complexity of property rights. Another act is Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act 1986. So it is an important piece of legislation in India that focuses on the rights of Muslim women, particularly in the context of divorce and post-divorce maintenance. It was passed after this Shah Banu case, which was very controversial. So this act addresses the financial rights and entitlement of Muslim women, both married and unmarried, on family property. And here are some key provisions of this act that pertain to rights of girls and women on family property. First, there is meher or dower. So the act recognizes women's right to receive her meher or dower as agreed upon in the marriage contract. Meher is a financial consideration that a husband pays to his wife as a token of his commitment and obligation. It is considered the exclusive property of the wife. Second right is maintenance during the iddat period. That is, after divorce, it is seen whether a woman is pregnant or not, and that is based on the menstruation. This iddat period could be around, say, 3 months to verify whether she is pregnant or not. That is called iddat period. So under that, a divorced woman, whether she is married or unmarried, is entitled to reasonable and fair maintenance during the iddat period. The iddat period is a waiting period during which the woman cannot remarry and must observe certain conditions following divorce or the death of her husband that ensures that she is provided for during this period. So there is maintenance during the iddat period. Then residence during the iddat period. So Act also provides for the right of a divorced woman to reside in the matrimonial home during the iddat period, and she cannot be evicted from the house during this time. And it is the husband's responsibility to provide for her residence. And based upon the findings, that is whether she is pregnant or not, then further decisions may be taken. The right to maintenance beyond the iddat period. So while the Act primarily deals with the rights during the iddat period, a divorced woman may also be entitled to maintenance beyond this period if she is unable to support herself. The Act allows divorced women to seek maintenance under Section 125 of the CRPC, that is Code of Criminal Procedure, or other relevant provisions if she is eligible, because CRPC applies to Muslim communities as well in India, because there is uniform criminal law for all communities, regardless of their religions. Then there is right to dower or meher even after divorce. So the Act clarifies that a woman's right to receive her dower or meher from her former husband remains intact even after divorce. It is her property and she has the right to claim it at any time, even after divorce. So we can conclude that Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act 1986 primarily focuses on financial rights and entitlements of Muslim women during and after divorce. It does not specifically address property rights in the sense of inheritance or ownership of family property. So family property is not discussed in this. property-related rights, including inheritance, are primarily governed by Islamic maintenance laws and personal laws within the Muslim community. For that, there is Sharia's application at 1937. As with other personal laws, application and interpretation of these provisions may vary depending on individual circumstances, regional custom, and specific cases. Next, we come to Christian community. Now there are two laws. First, there is Indian Succession Act 1925. So for Christian community, in fact, it applies to all communities. So Indian Succession Act is a significant 1925 is a significant piece of legislation in India that governs the distribution of the property and assets of a deceased person when they die without leaving a will, that is dying intestate. So when there is no testament, so in such cases, it applies. The act applies to people of all religions, including Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and others. So in case of, say, inter-religious marriages, where there is confusion which law to apply, so in cases, there could be we can say, this Indian Succession Act that applies to Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and others. It sets out the rules for succession of property. So in succession cases, it applies. And in succession cases, we see that rules for succession of property and the rights of heirs, including girls and women, both married and unmarried, on the family property. Here are some key provisions of this related to rights of girls and women in family property. So next we come to section by section, succession of property. Section 8, the Act defines who the legal heirs of a deceased person are and the order in which they inherit. So order is there, and these are specified in the Act and schedule, percentage, etc. Legal heirs include daughters, sons, spouses, parents, and other relatives. There could be a long list of relatives. Then equal rights to daughters. So section 15. So this section ensures that daughters have an equal right to inherit the property of their parents alongside sons. So even among Christians, there are equal rights to daughters. In case of the intestate succession of a deceased person, that is without making will, wasiyatnama, daughters are entitled to a share in their parents' property, just like sons. Then there are right of widows. So section 39. A widow has the right to inherit her deceased husband's property as one of the legal heirs. Her rights are not affected by her remarriage. So even after remarriage, this right to her deceased husband's property applies. The right of married and unmarried daughters. So section 39, both married and unmarried daughters have the right to inherit their deceased parents' property. Then there is order of succession, because the order or priority or percentages have to be defined, and this is often a bone of contention in family disputes before the family courts. So Act provides an order of succession that is applicable when a person dies intestate. It specifies that if the deceased has left a widow, sons, and daughters, the property is divided among them as per the rules outlined in the Act. The right of female lineal descendants. So this section provides, section 38, it provides for the inheritance rights of female lineal descendants, including daughters, granddaughters, and great-granddaughters. They have a share in the deceased property. So these are rights of female lineal descendants. The right of heirs among themselves. So section 50 is there in Indian Succession Act. The Act allows heirs to partition their property amongst themselves. This can be useful in cases where there are multiple heirs, including daughters and sons. So in case of partition, this section 50 applies, right of heirs amongst themselves. It includes male, female, both. Then entitlement of surviving spouse, that is after the husband has died. So in case of the deceased has left a surviving spouse, it could be male spouse after death of wife. So in case the deceased has left a surviving spouse along with other legal heirs, the spouse is entitled to a specific share of the property. So here husbands and wife have say right even after death of their wife or husband. So that right is there. Then customary laws are there. So Act recognizes the customs also. So in cases of, say, these customs, there could be of succession for various communities and regions in India, and these customs may affect the property rights of girls and women in certain cases. So we can conclude that Indian Succession Act 1925 is a secular law that applies to individuals of all religions and communities in India. It also ensures that daughters, married or unmarried, have equal rights in the property of their parents and other family members in the event of intestate succession, that is without making will. Next, we come to Indian Divorce Act 1869. That applies to Christian communities. So Indian Divorce Act 1869 primarily deals with matters related to divorce and matrimonial issues among Christians in India. While the Act focuses on divorce proceedings, it does have some provisions that indirectly affect the rights of girls and women, both married and unmarried, in the context of family property. And here are some key provisions. First, rights of married women. Section 37 applies. In event of divorce, judicial separation, or nullity of marriage, the court can make orders regarding the custody, maintenance, and education of children of the marriage. So there is a right to custody of children. This ensures that married women have the right to seek maintenance and support for their children from their former husbands. Then there is Section 38 of Indian Divorce Act. The court may also order payment of alimony to the wife, a form of spousal support, when deciding on divorce and judicial separation. Divorce is permanent, judicial separation is temporary. The court considers the husband's income and financial situation when determining the amount of alimony. So husband's income and financial situation or property, these things are considered. Judicial separation may become final or permanent if there is no settlement even after 1 year, or the judicial separation may result into uniting by mutual consent again. So they may become husband and wife because it is a temporary divorce, we may say. Then custody of children, Section 41. So in custody disputes, the court can consider the welfare of the child as a paramount consideration when determining which parent, that is mother or father, should have custody of the child. This provision indirectly affects the rights of married women as mothers. After custody of children, property rights in case of divorce. So Indian Divorce Act 1869 does not specifically address property rights. It is not related to that because already we have seen for that there is Indian Succession Act 1925 that applies in family or property for women in the context of divorce. But property rights for married women, including division of property, may be determined by the terms of the marriage settlement, if any, or because there is marriage agreement also, if there is court marriage, or by other applicable laws such as the Indian Succession Act 1925. For intercaste and interreligious, there is Special Marriage Act 1954. And for foreign, it applies to all marriages, including foreign marriages. And if Indian people go to foreign countries and marry there, so for that recognition, there is a Foreign Marriage Act also, just like some film stars, cricketers, both are living within India, but they commit foreign marriages. So in case of the Foreign Marriage Act applies. Now, property rights of unmarried women. So Indian Divorce Act 1869 does not explicitly address the property rights of unmarried women in family property. And unmarried women, whether daughters or other relatives, typically have property rights governed by other applicable laws such as Indian Succession Act 1925. So if there is marriage, then the Divorce Act applies. Otherwise, Indian Succession Act 1925 applies for unmarried daughters. So we can conclude that Indian Divorce Act 1869 primarily focuses on divorce and related matters among Christians, and property rights for girls and women, both married and unmarried, are usually determined by other relevant laws, including Indian Succession Act, personal laws based on religion and customs, and legal provisions and application of these laws can vary depending on individual circumstances, regional customs, and personal practices. Next, we come to Parsi community. It is one of the minority communities, and Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act 1936 is the special law that applies to Parsi community. So Parsi, or the people who have come from Persia, Iran. So Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act 1936 is a specific piece of legislation that governs matters related to marriage and divorce within the Parsi community in India. Many of them are settled in and around Mumbai. That includes provisions related to the rights of girls and women, both married and unmarried, concerning family property. And here are key provisions of the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act 1936 that pertain to rights of girls and women on family property. First, Section 31 is there. This section addresses property rights of Parsi women who are married. It states that Parsi wife is entitled to maintenance and support from her husband during the marriage. This maintenance includes financial support for the wife's living expenses and necessities. Then there is property settlements and antenuptial agreements. So Section 32 is there. The Act allows Parsi couples to enter into antenuptial agreements, which are agreements made before marriage. These agreements can include provisions related to property settlements, including disposition of property upon divorce or death. That is, succession is also included within this. Then maintenance and alimony for divorced women. So in the case of divorce, the Act provides for payment of alimony or maintenance to the divorced Parsi wife. The court can order the husband to pay a specific amount as alimony based on the circumstances of the case. These are also settled before family court, civil proceedings. Property rights of unmarried women, Section 36. Act allows unmarried Parsi women to make a will to dispose of their property. So even the girls can dispose of their property. This partition provision gives unmarried Parsi women the right to determine the distribution of their property as per their wishes. Then intestate succession, that is without making will. So Section 39, the Act addresses distribution of property of a deceased Parsi person when they die intestate, that is without a will, wasiyatnama. It defines the legal heirs, including daughters, sons, and other relatives who are entitled to inherit the property. And the right to make a will. So Parsi individuals, both men and women, have right to make a will to specify how their property should be distributed after their death. This allows individuals, including unmarried women, to exercise their property rights and choose their heirs. The rights of widows. So it also contains provisions related to rights of widows, including the rights to maintenance and support after the death of their husbands. So even widows have the rights under this Act. So we can conclude that Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act 1936 is specific to the Parsi community in India, and then may not be applicable to individuals outside the community. Because if there is a inter-caste marriage, then of course some other laws would apply, maybe Special Marriage Act in such cases. So that we have to see what is the applicability of a particular law. Then additionally, property laws and inheritance provisions can be influenced by the specific terms of a will, and if one exists and other relevant laws, then in such cases, the Act primarily focuses on marriage and divorce matters within the Parsi community, and its provisions related to property rights are in line with the community's customs and practices. So these customs and practices are also recognized. Next we come to Sikh community. As far as Sikh community is concerned, so there is Anand Marriage Act that applies to Sikh community as far as marriage is concerned. Of course, Hindu laws also apply because it is considered part of Sikh community, and family laws are similar. So Hindu Succession Act 1956 applies to Sikhs along with Hindus, Buddhists, Jains and other communities that are not governed by separate personal laws, and Act brought about significant changes in inheritance and property rights of girls and women, both married and unmarried, in the Sikh community. And here are some key provisions of Hindu Succession Act that applies relevant to rights of Sikh girls and women on family property. So first is equal inheritance rights, section 6. So Hindu Succession Act, as amended in 2005, grants daughters equal rights as sons in ancestral property. In other words, daughters have same rights, inheritance rights as sons. This applies to both say married and unmarried daughters. Co-partnership property, that is inherited from joint family. So Act amendment also gave daughters right to become co-partners in Hindu undivided family, that is HUF property. Even there are separate taxation laws as far as the HUF is concerned, that is considered separate legal entity in Income Tax Act. Co-partnership property is ancestral property jointly owned by the male members of the family, and now daughters have equal rights in such property just like sons after this 2005 amendment. Then devolution of property, section 8. So the Act outlines the rules for devolution of property when a Hindu male dies intestate, that is without a will, and in such cases daughters, that is sons and other legal heirs, have specific shares in the deceased property as per the the schedule, that is who gets what percentage depending on their closeness or nearness of a relationship. So for that this applies, who gets how much share. So this is the devolution of property. Next, if there is will, then will overrides the default provisions. The right to seek partition. So section 23, daughter has right to seek partition of her share in the joint family property. This provision enables women to claim their rightful share in the family property and demand its division. So there is right to seek partition in Sikh community also. Next we come to married daughters' rights. So section 27, that is even after marriage, a daughter retains her rights in her parental property, and her marital status does not affect her right to inherit and own her share. So even after, say, even whether it is before marriage or after marriage, the rights are not affected. It doesn't affect her right to inherit and own her share in both cases, whether married or unmarried. They have equal rights. Next, we see right to seek maintenance. So section 20, the Act provides for the right of maintenance for daughters, whether married or unmarried, and if they are unable to maintain themselves, they can seek financial support from their parents. It is same as in case of Hindus. Next, we come to devolution of property on daughter's death. So section 15, if a daughter dies without a will, her property devolves upon her legal heirs, including her children, husband, and other relatives. Next, we see conclusion. So Hindu Succession Act 1956, as amended in 2005, is significantly strengthened property rights of Sikh daughters and women like Hindu, and ensuring that they have equal rights in ancestral property and co-partnership property. And these provisions apply to both married and unmarried Sikh women and daughters, and Act promotes gender equality in property inheritance and aligns with the broader principle of gender justice in India. Next, we come to Anand Marriage Act 1909. It is applicable to Sikh community only. So Anand Marriage Act 1909 is a specific piece of legislation in India that pertains to Sikh community and governs the registration of Sikh marriages. While that primarily deals with the registration of Sikh marriages, now for registration is also going to become compulsory under the UCC. The bill is not yet proposed or tabled in the House of Legislature. It does not include detailed provisions regarding property rights of girls and women, whether married or unmarried, or family property. Property rights in Sikh community are primarily governed by broader legal frameworks such as Hindu Succession Act 1956 and customs prevalent within the community. So here are some key points to understand as far as Anand Marriage Act is concerned. First, it is mainly about actually registration. So Anand Marriage Act 1909 provides a legal framework for registration of Sikh marriages and defines requirement for a valid Sikh marriage ceremony. It is important because there is often a question registration of marriages as far as all communities are concerned. So whether a child is born within say wedlock, outside wedlock, whether it is legitimate, illegitimate, these are the questions in legal disputes. There are marriages under this act to establish legal proof of marriage. Then property rights. So property rights including inheritance and ownership of family property among Sikhs are generally governed by Hindu Succession Act 1956 in case there is no specific Sikh personal law or custom that applies. And under the Sikh, under the Hindu Succession Act, daughters, whether married or unmarried, have equal rights as sons in ancestral property. This is same as say in case of Hindus. Next we come to third right, that is customary practices. So it is worth noting that customs within Sikh community may also play a role in determining property rights and practices related to family property, and these customs can vary among different Sikh families and regions. Customary practices are different from religious practices. The UCC, Uniform Civil Code, does not address religious practices. It doesn't affect religion. It only relates to family law, that is, say, marriage, divorce, inheritance, and adoption. These are the only 4 issues that are addressed as far as Uniform Family Code would be proper name rather than UCC. Now, registration and legal formalities. So while the Anand Marriage Act 1909 primarily addresses registration of Sikh marriages, the Act itself does not contain detailed provisions related to property rights, and therefore legal and property rights of Sikh women, married or unmarried, on family property would primarily depend on broader legal frameworks and customs. So we can conclude that there are 2 acts as far as Sikh communities are concerned. So Anand Marriage Act 1909 is primarily focused on registration of Sikh marriages and does not contain comprehensive provisions related to property rights of Sikh girls and women. For property rights, this Hindu Succession Act 1956 applies. So property rights within Sikh community are typically governed by broader legal frameworks such as Hindu Succession Act 1956 and customs specific to community. And consulting with a legal expert as far as individual applicabilities to solving one's problem is concerned. So consulting with a legal expert or seeking guidance from Sikh religious authority, that is Gurudwara authorities, can be helpful for understanding property rights in individual cases. Now we come to Jain community. Even Jain community is considered, say, part of Hindu community, and Hindu laws apply. So legal practices for the rights of Jain community girls and women, both married and unmarried, on family property in India are primarily governed by general Indian laws such as Hindu Succession Act 1956 for those who follow the Hindu undivided family HUF structure and inheritance practices. Mainly they are located in Rajasthan state of India, but even they are spread all over India. However, the rights of Jains, who are considered a distinct religious minority, are not specifically addressed to separate personal laws like those for Hindus, Muslims, Christians, or Sikhs. So these are some legal provisions and principles that apply to Jain girls and women. Firstly, there is equal inheritance, like in case of Hindus. So Jains who follow HUF structure, Hindu undivided family, and customs are governed by Hindu Succession Act 1956, which grants equal rights to daughters, whether married or unmarried, in ancestral property and co-personal property. Act was amended in 2005 to ensure gender equality in property rights, allowing daughters to become co-partners and inherit property at par with sons. Then there are maintenance rights. So Jain women, both married and unmarried, have the right to seek maintenance and financial support under various provisions of Indian laws, such as 125 of CRPC. That is actually secular law that applies to all say communities or religions, regardless of their say religion in India. So there is uniform criminal code. If they are unable to maintain themselves, they can approach the court for financial support from their parents, spouses, or other relatives. So this maintenance is not only for say wife. It could be through multiple wives if they exist. It could be to children, whether legitimate, illegitimate. It also applies to parents. Section 125 to 128, and that is also these provisions are there in the new proposed Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita Bill 2023 also, that is likely to become law in next winter session of Parliament, maybe in 3 to 4 months. The bill is already tabled in the House on 11th of August by the Home Minister Amit Shah. Now, right to self-acquired property. So, Jain women, whether married or unmarried, have the right to own marriage and dispose of their property and dispose of their self-acquired property independently. It is 8:30. I would just take 10 minutes. We shall see 2 more communities and then conclude. Self-acquired property includes assets acquired through personal efforts, inheritance, gifts, or purchases. So this is self-acquired property. Then we see right to will and testament. So they can write their will. Jain individuals, including women, have the right to create a will and specify distribution of their property. That is what happens to their property after their death, as per their wishes. This allows them to exercise control over their assets even after their demise. The rights of widows. So Jain widows have legal rights to their deceased husband's property as per provisions of Hindu Succession Act 1956 and other relevant laws. And customary practices also apply. So customary practices within the Jain community may also influence property rights and inheritance. These practices can vary among different Jain families and regions. And court also recognizes this because all things may not be legislated upon. In summary, legal rights of Jain girls and women on family property in India are primarily governed by general Indian laws, especially Hindu Succession Act 1956, when the Jain family structure follows HUF, that is Hindu undivided family practices. Jain women have equally inheritance rights as per this act, that is similar to men or males, and they are entitled to maintenance and self-acquired property rights, among others. However, customary practices within Jain community can also influence property rights, and consulting legal expert is recommended for clarity on individual property matters, like in case of whether there is a Jain Hindu marriage or say inter-community or inter-caste or inter-religious marriages or foreign marriages. And lastly, in the last part of this presentation, we come to tribal communities, which are not covered above. Particularly, they are in northeastern states, but they are spread all over India. Earlier, they were called criminal tribes, but now that word is banned, and now we call them scheduled tribes because that Criminal Tribes Act was made by Britishers. So in India, the legal practices for the property rights of girls and women, both married and unmarried, in tribal communities are primarily governed by a combination of central and state laws. So there are state laws, and even Assam is now divided into 7 northeastern states, and different rights of different tribes are recognized. These provisions are intended to protect and provide the rights of girls and women within tribal communities concerning family property, including parental and in-law property. Since the law recognizes the customs and traditions also, therefore, these traditional rights or customs and practices are recognized for tribal communities also. That is the unity in diversity in India. So specific provisions may vary depending on the tribal community and the state in which they reside, as states in India have the authority to enact laws related to property rights. So state governments are given rights in such cases. Here are some of the key legal provisions and principles related to girls and women property rights in tribal communities. So first we come to Constitution of India. As far as Constitution is concerned, so Indian Constitution provides fundamental rights and directives for the protection of human rights, including right to equality, Article 14, non-discrimination, Article 15, and right to life and personal liberty, that includes right to live with dignity, Article 21. So these provisions apply to all women, including those from tribal communities. So these fundamental rights apply. That means they are justiciable in high courts as well as Supreme Courts. As far as legal rights, that is for lower courts or family courts are concerned. So Hindu Succession Act 1956 applies. So if a tribal community follows Hindu customs and traditions, then the Hindu Succession Act applies. So as per the amended Hindu Succession Act 2005, daughters, whether married or unmarried, have equal rights to ancestral and self-acquired property along with sons. This is as far as Hindu tribes are concerned. And there are some customary laws. So many tribal communities in India follow customary laws and practices that govern property rights. So these customs may vary from one community to another. And in some tribes, women may have relatively strong property rights, while in others, their rights may be limited. So there is wide differences that are seen in customary laws of different tribes as far as particularly northeastern states are concerned. And then there are state laws. So some states in India, because it is a union of states and this federation because of this federal structure. So some states in India have enacted specific laws. There are 3-tiered government in India. There is central government, state government, and even local government. So some states in India have enacted specific laws or regulations related to property rights of tribal women. So these states' laws may provide additional protections or provisions for girls and women in tribal communities. States are formed later, that is in 1956, 1966, after States Reorganization Act, and there could be some regional laws also. So these regional laws, and if they are not repealed, they also exist and they may also apply. So there could be the provincial laws or say regional laws that applies to some parts of state or more than one state. So these laws also exist. So the state laws provide for additional protection or provisions for girls and women in tribal communities. So then there is Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996, that is called as PESA. So PESA empowers through 74th Amendment, this third tier of government was there, and say besides the central and state governments, we also have a local government in India. So district panchayat, kshetra panchayat, gram panchayat, of course they are known with different names in different states in India. So these are there, even say cantonment boards and many other local authorities are there. So PESA empowers tribal communities and their traditional village councils, that is gram sabhas, to manage their own affairs, including land and resources. So it recognizes the role of tribal women in decision making and property management within these communities. So that is PESA Act that applies to tribal women or tribal communities. It's not moving. Yes, it has hand. Okay, so that was the last slide, I think. I'm stopping sharing here. And we have seen, so I would conclude, we have seen these laws for all major and minority communities in India and how they apply to, say, different communities. And we have seen mainly about these, say, property rights of girls and women. So if there are any questions, I would be glad to answer these. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your detailed
Yes, that was the last slide. Yes, so I have concluded already. Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from anybody in the audience?
Yeah, now it's time for the queries, clarifications, discussions, if any. You can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself and ask if you have any queries, or you can use chat box.
Actually, I'm not a specialist or an expert in family law and nor a practitioner, but still, these are the, say, some provisions that I had studied during my LLB course. But I would be glad to answer any questions, because many times some of my friends or, say, engineers to whom I train in State Engineers Academy, so sometimes they call me for these, say, marital disputes. So I try to solve their problems also as per based on my knowledge. So,
yes.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening, madam.
I'm Hemalata from AP, sir. I'm the legal law department scholar in Andhra University, sir. So it has come to my notice that many of these domestic violence cases are being filed without genuineness in the cases, sir. How to overcome this problem, actually, sir? The women are making misuse of these laws which are being made, sir. How to overcome this problem among the men, sir?
Yes, madam. Even as far as, see, there are special laws for women. Actually, that is not actually a topic of this presentation. Maybe I would, that is law for women and even family law for women. But I would briefly say give my opinion on that. See, the most misused section is actually 498A. That is cruelty. See, cruelty has got two meanings. Civil meaning is as far as divorce is concerned. So divorce, cruelty can be one of the grounds for divorce, but this is often confused by people with cruelty under 498A, that is under criminal law. That is the major reason. Secondly, there is often, say, bad advice given by, say, police and say, lawyers, because they make income by converting the civil dispute into a criminal dispute. And then those relations are spoiled further rather than improving the relationship. So actually, counseling by the NGOs or counseling by the relatives Because see, marriage is considered in India not as a relationship between two persons, but rather between two families. And that's why there is ceremony and invitation to all these relatives and families, and distant and far relatives are also invited in marriages. So it is considered a relationship between family. But when the civil laws are considered into criminal proceedings, as per the findings of the Law Commission of India, 90% cases see, I'm talking only of one section. Okay, of course there is need for separate law for women, but 90% cases under 498A have been found to be fake. And these findings have been, see, these are not survey or social survey or findings of, these are actually court statistics. So these findings of Law Commission of India have also been accepted by the Supreme Court of India. And some directions have been issued to state governments by the central governments, that as far as family disputes are concerned, so in cases there should not be arrests, or the arrest shall not be made by officer below the rank of DYSP, Deputy Superintendent of Police at least. And secondly, only the daughter-in-law or the vadhu should not be considered as woman, because there is mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and they are also women. So sometimes even the Supreme Court has told the NCW, that is National Commission for Women, that there should not be arrest of daughter-in-law and this sister-in-law, because mother-in-law and sister-in-law, because they are also women. So daughter-in-law is not the only woman that there, but there could be mother-in-law and sister-in-law also, Sas and Nanan, that are also women. And therefore, as far as and when they are not living together in one house, then there are no chances of domestic violence or these things. And in such cases, if these people are implicated in false criminal cases, obviously it also even if there are genuine cases, so genuine people are actually the sufferers because of these false cases. And in such cases, civil proceedings should not be converted to criminal, and even the courts are circumspect in some cases. And even in land cases, this problem is there found in India. That is, if that is because of pendency or arrears in cases, that if they are not solved within a few years, then the people take the law into their own hands, and civil cases are converted into criminal cases. That is a big problem. So faster justice, I think, is one such way. See, separate laws are there and should be there and must be there for women. That is actually a separate topic, because gender equality must be there. And that is not actually a topic here, but we are concerned mainly with family property law. But yes, 498A is much misused. And even DV Act, as far as my personal knowledge is concerned, I have come across many cases where even when there is no, domestic violence, this DV Act, because the provisions are such that any woman can get imprisoned her husband for 2 years. And the allegation of woman shall be relied upon. That is, the presumption of law is in favor of woman, although it is rebutable. That is, by bringing in evidence, it can be, refuted by the husband. But because of this presumption also, because the presumption is that no, woman would like to see her husband imprisoned. And therefore, these types of provision or drastic provisions have been made. And therefore, in case of separation, such provisions are also misused. And therefore, these precautionary measures have been taken by the government as well as the courts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Any more questions? I had actually made one presentation in NIT Agartala. So that was based on this, gender inequality and gender ratio, the consequences of this inadequate gender ratio. I think in this webinar series also I have made this presentation maybe 1.5 years before. So maybe I would repeat some of those things because there are two different topics. First is the gender inequality and its consequences, need for separate laws for women. And in that there are many different laws for women that are there in Constitution as well as in other laws, civil law, labor law, family law, criminal law. So I have classified into these different categories and made a separate study of this section by section. And as far as the family laws are concerned, So here we have considered only a small part of that. That is only the family property law, particularly from the perspective of the UCC, because now that Uniform Civil Code has been proposed in India, and therefore, what are the impacts that are going to be there? So registration is going to be made compulsory. In fact, one such a bill has been drafted in Uttarakhand, and the Chief Information Commissioner, retired CIC of Uttarakhand, Shatrugna Singh, who was also Chief Secretary of Uttarakhand, he was one of the members of this committee, and they have proposed a bill. That bill has been shared with the central government also, and now the central government is likely to come up with this UCC bill that is yet to be tabled before the House of Parliament. Once it is tabled, we shall actually see how these four things, that is, as far as family law is concerned, that is marriage, divorce, succession, and adoption, are going to be affected in India for all communities. So from that perspective, I have consolidated this information about these different communities in India. On UCC also, there was one presentation by me in this meeting hosted from Rewa, Madhya Pradesh. That is the RTI meeting. So that meeting is hosted weekly, and in that I had presented one on UCC. This is separate from that. Here we are focusing on family property law for women in India. Any more questions?
Yeah, I don't think so. There are any further queries in chat box. So if anyone would like to share orally, you can raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself or ask. Okay, if there are no further queries, then we shall move on.
Okay, so thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity to make this presentation. And thanks to Sri Holistic Health Foundation of India, also to Sri Research Institute for Center for Arts, Science and Well-being for giving me this opportunity for making this presentation on street and succession and legal and property rights for girls and women in this international seminar. Thank you so much. Thanks to all the members of the audience. I'm stopping sharing.
Thank you, sir, for a really wonderful session. This is need of the hour. Many times we see, because we are talking, as you rightly pointed out, gender equality. When we are talking, it is also financial empowerment and economic empowerment. That is also part of discussion that happens every time when we talk about gender equality. So it is very much prominent, and today on occasion of World Patient Safety Day also, which is also very much relevant. But often we see, the medical and healthcare facilities are often, not reachable, or often, neglected, especially for girls and women, especially in rural areas, and where the underprivileged population below poverty line and other aspects. So it was very much relevant, and hope everyone has gained a lot of insights. Maybe, these things, we can discuss, and if we have queries, we share. As part of the discussion, we can learn more. And there is one more request that to be organized in Hindi as well as Telugu language. Today, we thought of having both the sessions in Hindi as well as Telugu language. But unfortunately, due to other engagement, we could not have. But in coming days, we assure you that we will have similar event, similar topics in coming days on in Hindi as well as other languages whenever the resource persons are available. So thank you once again, Virendra Kumarji, for your wonderful session, and we wish you all the success for your future endeavors.
Thank you, sir.
Dear friends, so we request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form for the second session. So we will end the feedback form. So it's still active. So what we'll do, we will end up for the day, and very soon, maybe by next week or in the coming week or by next week, we will plan one more session in Hindi or Telugu language as per the availability. I will try to check with the resource persons, and we can, further have discussion, and we can have more content as well. With maybe some case laws, where we can discuss, so that it will give more insights, so that it will initiate further discussion. We also, whenever there is such discussions, we can also bring out and ask certain, refer to certain cases where you personally or your family or maybe your friend's family have gone through, and share it. Like as already rightly pointed out, the 498A is highly abused, and we have seen it many times. The courts, judiciary systems, and even media also raise their concerns a lot of times. But as rightly pointed by our resource person, counseling is very much essential, and proper guidance by all the stakeholders, including family members, and also the judiciary, law enforcement officers, and everyone, women and child officers, or whoever might be the stakeholders for the entire process, should properly guide them in a right manner, so that there is no such, again, such concerns or issues of misuse or abuse of the system. So we have one more presentation, a short presentation. Hope most of the content have been already presented, but let's look if, let's see if we can have few more insights. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form for session 2. So we'll take a small, quick session by The feedback form has been already launched. You may access it from the polls quizzes menu. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form for session 2 so that we can move on to our last session. Today we will conclude it here and we will take it up on the next Sunday or coming Sunday. We'll inform you about that. So Kulwant Kaur, after you fill the feedback form, you can raise your hand so that we can give you access to share your presentation. And now you can unmute yourself, start your video and presentation.
Sir, I am preparing for video for another phone, from another phone, sir.
Okay. Those who would like to make presentations, kindly register and share your details in chat box so that we can consider your request. If anyone is interested to present. Those who have already registered and share your topic. Kulwant Kaur, we can't hear you. The slides are moving. You have to unmute yourself if you are presenting. Yeah, now it's fine.
Hello, sir. Kindly allow me to start the video, sir.
Yeah, you
Hello,
can
sir.
start your video, ma.
It's from Harsimran name.
Sorry, ma.
Second member is name is Harsimran Singh. I'm appearing from his mobile
Okay.
for video. Harsimran Singh.
Just give me a second. Now you can share your video.
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, sir. Can you see me? Am I visible, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Good evening to all. I thank Dr. Ravindra sir and Shri Holistic Health Foundation and Shri Research Institute Center of Arts and Wellbeing for giving me an opportunity to present my presentation on women's property under Hindu Act. According to the Hindu succession law, a married woman has the right over her own property, which she can gift, sell, or give it to someone according to her wish. She qualifies to receive shelter, maintenance, and support from her husband and his Hindu undivided family. The Smritikars perceived the concept of Sridhan as those property which a female received by way of gift from her relatives, which majorly comprises movable property. Sridhan is said to also include those gifts that are provided by her wedding guests at the time of both the bridal procession and during the marriage ceremony. A widow has the right to receive a 1/8 share of her husband's property if she has children. Female heirs get half the share of their parents' property. Female heirs get half the share of their parents' property compared to what the male heirs receive. A single daughter has the right to receive half the share of her parents' property. Despite the fact that Stridhan and dowry are completely different words, they are sometimes confused to mean the same thing. Dowry is defined as any property or valued security given or agreed to be given by the bride's family to the bridegroom's family before, after, or during the time of marriage under domestic law. The most significant distinction between dowry and stridhan is the presence of demand, undue influence, or compulsion in the former, but not in the latter. Stridhan is a present given to women voluntarily rather than as a result of pressure, undue influence, or force. The Indian courts have established a distinction between stridhan and dowry. The fundamental reason behind such distinction is that if any marriage breaks down in the future, the woman will be able to recover the goods she received as stridhan, which will not be the case with the dowry gifts. Women's right to her stridhan is protected under law as 14 of the Hindu Succession Act 1956 R.W. as 27 of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Even if it is placed in the custody of her husband or her in-laws, they would be deemed to be trustees and bound to return the same if and when demanded by her. What are the property rights for women in India? In India, women have the legal right to own, inherit, and dispose of property. The Hindu Succession Act 1956 governs the property rights of Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs, and provides equal inheritance rights for both sons and daughters. What is the women's right in father's property in India? As per the amendment, a daughter is recognized as a co-personer in the ancestral property. That is, she has a right by birth in the ancestral property, and thus our daughter will have an equal share in the ancestral property as that of a son even after marriage. What is the law for girl in property? A daughter can acquire, hold, and dispose of property at birth with any other man. Today, there are practically no restrictions on a woman's capacity to acquire, hold, and dispose of her property. Daughters have an equal share in their father's self-acquired property as well as ancestral property. An unmarried woman enjoys co-personary rights or legal right in the ancestral property of her parents, and unmarried woman has the right to ask for property partition and claim her shares. It, however, begs a mention here that this is only applicable in the case of ancestral property. This was the article for today. Thank you very much. Once again, I thanks to Ravindra sir for giving me the opportunity on this platform. Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful time ahead. Take care. Good night.
Congratulations, Kulwant. I know this is your one of the first presentation, so you can improve much better in coming days. And as most of them, I mean, it's a presentation is mostly in a generic way. So, but already we have covered most of the topics, concepts by earlier presenter. So hope there are no further queries or clarifications.
Yes.
And we have to be very specific when we mention, because now you have already attended the previous presentation, and now you are also aware of your presentation. You can see, when we are mentioning something, it is always better, like being India a diverse country. You have mentioned that woman has the right to receive 1/8 of the property. But, which provision says that? So that needs to be mentioned. Otherwise, it cannot be generalized. So such things we have to be very cautious when we are presenting. Of course, yeah. This is your first presentation, so it's okay. There is always scope for improvement for everyone, including me and everyone on this platform or anywhere for that matter. We constantly keep improving. So there's always a scope for improvement for everyone every time. So you can do much better in future. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.
So anyone else, those who have registered would like to present and share your details. Otherwise, we will end the sessions for the day. Hemalata. Hemalata, are you ready with your paper presentation on child labor? You have mentioned it in the chat box. Would you like to present now or in any upcoming conference? Can you use chat box? Okay, fine. You can keep watching the website, and you can make presentations in the upcoming conferences. So thank you everyone for joining us, and there are a lot of appreciation messages in the chat box. We thank each and every one of you for joining us. Hope all these sessions were very much insightful. So we request everyone to quickly fill up the overall feedback form. And the registration link has been already shared in the chat box. Those who have not registered, you can register. Those who have already registered need not register again. And based on your attendance, based on your registration, attendance, feedback, certificates will be generated automatically. For the eligibility criteria, you can check the website and you can download your certificates from website within a week. We will also update you whenever certificates are updated on the website, in WhatsApp group, Facebook, and other social media channels. So we thank each one of you for joining and contributing and proactively participating and presenting in this international seminar. Which addresses especially on gender equality, gender empowerment, and also legal and property rights for the girls and women. So we request everyone to quickly fill up the overall feedback form, which has been raised in the form of polls. The entire sessions of all the events, including this event, are available on YouTube channel. The channel and the sessions link have been already shared in the chat box. You can subscribe to our YouTube channels so that you can get notified whenever a new event is being live streamed. And you can also go back and refer to the sessions, view sessions, whenever there is a need. And the link for this video will be also available on the website, on the corresponding web page. You can always go back and refer to the sessions, any session in the series on the website or YouTube channel. Soon, as we have informed, we'll be floating the forms maybe in this month or next month. For those who could not complete formalities in time, or those who did not complete formalities till now, those who have attended or those who have presented, they can utilize this opportunity to register and complete the formalities to be eligible for the certificate. So you can verify all the details. You can check your presentation dates, timings, and video links on the website, and accordingly fill the form so that you will be eligible for the e-certificates. Thank you everyone once again for joining us. See you all tomorrow at 6 o'clock with the same joining link for International Webinar Series. Take care. Good night.